asks, are there any actionable steps you'd take in content strategy to cater for neural matching or entity SEO? That's a great question. That's a fantastic question. And here is how I think about that. I like to use SEO writer assistants like ClearScope, Surfer, SEMrush Writer Assistant, you name it. And the reason I like that is because what they do is they basically look at the top search results and they often perform an n-gram analysis to understand what are all the words, how often do they occur, and then they tend to run that through some proprietary algorithm. A lot of times it's TF-IDF or something similar. And the thing is, on a theoretical level, we can probably all agree that these systems like TF-IDF are not used by Google anymore. However, they still seem to be good enough to point us at these concepts like entities and neural matching. So I like to use them for that reason. They're typically good enough. Something else that I really like to do is to look at all the subtopics that an article covers to see, okay, because entities are often covered to subtopics, right? If you think about a logical way to write content, then you will often write about a main subject in a paragraph, right? Like a good writer does that by nature, and that main subject then often is the main entity. Let's look at something. Let's look at performance marketing, something that comes top of mind. The main entity in this case is most likely performance marketing. And something that Google really understands pretty well is what are all the related entities to performance marketing. So it could be something like marketing, or it could be something like advertising. So here we go. Advertising, right? And the thing is that most SEO writing assistants are fairly good at understanding or catching these entities more so by accident, but they still do a good enough job. So the main item here is to, I think, use these SEO writing assistants. Something else that you can do is that Google has these natural language processing API. It's part of Google Cloud. And what it does here is there's a way to try the API. Of course, if you're technical enough to use the API, by all means do that. You can just, let's just copy some of that stuff and post it in there. We're going to see what happens. Okay, copy, paste, analyze, not a robot. See what they show us. Okay, here we go. These are all the entities that Google has identified in the content. And Google doesn't only show you the entities, but it will also show you the salience of these entities. So what salience means is basically what is the relative importance of this entity within the content you copy pasted. Now, that's really cool to look at, but it's only really helpful if you're technical enough to run your content through the API, filter out a lot of noise, and compare that against a lot of the other content that's out there. So something you can do very technically, so you can look at the top 10 results, run it through the NLP API, compare the salience for some of the most important words here, and see if your content has a higher salience for these important words. I've done that before, it works, but I think the results are very equal to what a lot of SEO writing assistants do, and they use the NLP API as well. So I can tell you that a lot of them do. And then another way that you can play around with that is the following. This is tool time now. Okay, let's just say, I'm just going to copy paste that in, super ugly. But especially when you do keyword research or you kind of put content briefs together, there are these free browser extensions, or this free Google Sheets extension from Meaning Cloud that allows you to classify text, extract topics, cluster text, categorize it, and so on and so on. And something that I really like to do is I like to extract the topics here in order to see what all the entities are in the content, right? So here the extension will show you whether it found a concept or not in the concept, or concepts or entities, I'm sorry. And then it will also show you what the entity is. So I found that to be very interesting. Sometimes there are errors, so it's not always perfect, especially when you copy paste the whole text into it, but that will allow you to identify entities like pay-per-click, CPM and whatnot, market, performance, markets. So yeah, you probably have to work with this data a little bit, remove duplicates, sort it, filter it, but then that still doesn't give you the kind of relationship between entities that Google uses, and nobody has that, right? So just to be clear, nobody knows what exactly the entity graph on Google's side looks like. These are all just approximations, but in essence can help you find topics that you can then include in your content briefs and tell the writers, hey, make sure you cover these topics. That's a long-winded answer, including some tools to how to make sure it's quote unquote optimized for neural matching. Hope that was helpful. Casper asked, what's your take on current state versus future state on link building? I think it's still important. It's keyword specific. The way that I think about it is that Google understands the need and importance of backlinks based on the keywords. I think for very heavy competitive keywords like credit card or domain registration, I think it's going to be really, really hard to compete with the GoDaddies and the NerdWallets because they have incredibly strong link profiles. Two, I think it's very underrated still. I think backlinks matter greatly, but Google has been on a decade-long campaign to try to tell everybody that links don't matter. I don't believe that in the slightest. I see them, moving the needle, but there might be some keywords where you can rank without backlinks, where they're not absolutely crucial, but generally they help a lot. And the third thing I want to say about link building is that I think what's often forgotten because it's difficult to measure is the importance of mentions. So Google, even to maybe bring this full circle, even in this new search ranking systems guide, they mentioned that or references of content on of brands on our sites is something that Google measures and understands. So there are a couple of cool tools out there that allow you to monitor your brand's mentions, and I recommend all of you to do that. So SEMrush has an app on their marketplace. I forgot what the name's called. I think it's $50 a month that allows you to track mentions over time and see where your site was mentioned. I think some backlink trackers allow that. I think Ahrefs have something. I'm not exactly sure. And then there are a couple of other tools you can use. But I think backlinks are important and we often forget mentions. And if I were like with some of the large sites that I'm working with, we track mentions across the web, not just to reach out and say, hey, can you link back to us, but also just to understand, hey, which of our content is mentioned a lot, or in what context is our brand mentioned? And that's when we go back to concepts like EAT, which, by the way, was not mentioned a single time here in this new search guide or search systems guide. And the reason is there's not a single EAT algorithm, but Google will look at things like backlinks and mentions, and that was officially confirmed by Googlers to understand in what context a website is mentioned. So these are my thoughts on kind of the future of link building. I think it will remain. I think it's still important. Google pretends to be able to devalue spammy links or bot links or artificial links. I think that's only the case when backlinks are really spammy. Most of the times it still works very fine. And I wonder if maybe somebody builds a better tool in the future to track mentions and help show that this is also important to SEOs. I could see that maybe that then is kind of a new area in SEO. And I think that's when some of these PR agencies or there's some SEO agencies that focus specifically on PR. I think what they're actually doing is they have getting the word out about a brand, which then is quantified by mentions. And I think that has a positive.